around the county to see if they're suitable for roundabouts, and we should be coming out with those study results within the next month or so.
Hi, what is the cost per square feet in the real estate point of view? I know the project is 8.2 million, but how big a piece of land are you paving over?
I'm not quite sure. I do know that it's less land than a larger signalized intersection would take up.
Being a longtime resident of Pacific Grove, I've seen the patterns change of travel during these, like that picture that you showed. Mm-hmm. And I think that partially closing the DLI access made some impact there, but it seems like there are several employers who have their employees, like a couple of retirement homes in Pacific Grove, the hospital, Pebble Beach, they all get off work at the same time. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering, did anybody take that into consideration in looking at these patterns, and also alternatives like public transportation, like incentives for people to carpool? Mm-hmm. And a second part of that question is lighthouse and phone. Is there anything planned for future to alleviate the problem on that access to Pacific Grove?
So to answer your first question, the simulation that I showed earlier does include the volumes of traffic, including the employees from CHOMP and everyone. It's just the peak levels of traffic, which is the heaviest. And we have been in communication with CHOMP to talk about alternative modes of transportation for their employees during construction, and they've been very open to that. They currently operate a shuttle, so they do have an employee shuttle that they use, and they're going to be extending the service of that shuttle during construction. They have sounded willing to look at their shift start times and maybe staggering them a little, but they're not totally flexible on that. So the good news is that the roundabout will take care of the traffic problem. So it will be able to accommodate the peak flows of traffic. We are working with them and talking with them about alternative modes of commuting. And then your second question, can you please remind me? I'm sorry.
Lighthouse.
Lighthouse, that's right. Lighthouse, there is a major issue, and we actually have included looking at Lighthouse and improving Lighthouse in our expenditure plan for the transportation measure. So I'm going to boot that one over to Todd when he gives his presentation. But everyone knows that something needs to be done, and so we're hoping that our agency can help facilitate that in the future. Yes.
For people coming down Carmel Hills Drive, it seems to me I read that there's an issue here that they're going to have to make a right-hand turn.
Yes.
And then they're going to have to probably go to the hospital and make a U-turn to get back. Yeah. Is that still the case?
That's still the case. And let me go back to the simulation so you can see what that movement will look like. Currently, that driveway is really dangerous to get in and out of. It's very close to the Highway 1 off-ramp, and restricting the left turn out of the Carmel Hills Professional Center was actually a condition of the approval for the Forest Pavilion development project, which happened years ago, and the city has kind of given the hospital a pass until now and making that improvement part of this project. So it's always been the plan to restrict that left turn out of the Carmel Hills Professional Center. It's just happening now. So the vehicle will come out of the driveway, they'll turn right, and then they'll come up to the hospital intersection and turn around. But it'll actually probably save people time. I don't know if you've watched people try and get out and turn left during the peak hours of the day. It's nearly impossible, and it's very dangerous. So it's actually even though it seems like an inconvenience, it's actually will probably save people quite a lot of time.
Just one quick comment. I just came back from the East Coast. The great advantage I found with the roundabouts, because I wasn't familiar with where I was driving, was that you can just go around again.
Yeah.
And again.
Right.
Until you figure out where you want to get.
Yeah. We call that taking a lap. Yes, gentleman in the back.
How much time is it likely to save somebody? How many tons of carbon is going to be reduced? And have there been a lot of accidents on this in the last 3 years at this intersection?
Those are all great questions, and I'm not I don't have those numbers with me today, but I can maybe get back to, maybe I can send them to you. Okay, great. Sorry about that.
The selfish thing is how much time is it going to save you?
It'll save you a lot of time. I mean, right now, the queues or the vehicles back up for over a mile here. And even during the heaviest times, the lines will only get 200 feet long. So it's very significant, a very significant improvement. And I've got the numbers as to how much time it will save back at the office. I don't have them committed to memory, but it is significant. Okay. Thank you.
The simulation is great. It's really quite informative. Just a little background information on how we got here. The roundabout was a condition of approval of the last Pebble Beach plan. And so it's a mitigation measure for the traffic that was going to be generated with the additional development in Pebble Beach. So it was a requirement of that project. And just another note, it took a while to convince Caltrans that we should be building roundabouts. Initially, Caltrans opposed the roundabout, and finally were convinced that this would be a good approach. And it's nice to bring them along into the 21st century. Our next speaker is Todd Muck, who's the Deputy Executive Director of the Transportation Agency for Monterey County. Todd has been in the transportation planning field for over 20 years. In fact, we began working together 20 years ago when I was at the Air District. Todd will be speaking about the draft sales tax initiative that TAMC is looking to put on the ballot in 2016. And I've been participating in the stakeholder meetings, and there's a lot of discussion, and hopefully Todd will fill us in on what the latest is.
Thank you, Jen. Before I start that, the question about Lighthouse Avenue, and Ariana mentioned what Community Hospital is doing with enhanced shuttles during construction. She didn't mention that Monterey Salinas Transit has agreed to have a reduced monthly pass from in the $85 a month to $13 a month. So, for anyone who works in the peninsula or lives in the peninsula and would like to use transit as an alternative, and that's one way we want to reduce the congestion on Lighthouse. And Ariana's working with a group of the employers on the peninsula, particularly in the Cannery Row corridor and the aquarium, on how to reduce employee-based trips during the construction period. So there's a lot of people working hard to reduce the impacts of this, and we realize it's a kind of a choke point on the whole peninsula, and so a lot of efforts going into limiting the impacts. Janet mentioned she's been part of our advisory group, our community advisory group for the sales tax. Monterey County is a big county with a lot of diverse interests, so we've been trying to broaden the discussion throughout the county, and we put together a discussion draft for a proposed sales tax, and I'll be talking about that. The whole goal is keeping Monterey County moving, and it's something that not too difficult to explain, but our current roads are terrible. And that's not just here, it's everywhere. all throughout the county. Hartnell Road, some of these unincorporated roads have literally had no maintenance for decades because the county doesn't have any money to maintain them. Jensen Road. In the cities, each city has the same issues. When you look just around the county, there's well over $1 billion worth of repair needs. When you start to add in the cities, it's probably closer to $2 billion. And it's important because if you don't have any money to maintain your roads, it's a lot like having a leaky roof in your house and not being able to fix it, because then all of a sudden you have more than just a leaky roof, you have water damage, and you're talking about a much bigger bill to fix it. And what would it cost to maintain a road every 5 years increases dramatically as you delay maintenance. So you get to the point where after 20 years you have to reconstruct the road and it starts costing in the range of $1 million a mile. So while we have those issues, our roads are in terrible condition, we don't have the money, and this local sales tax is going to help with that a lot. There are also other issues in the county: regional congestion. Highway 68, if you travel that corridor every day, particularly the times that people are coming and going to work, you'll notice that it's backed up constantly. Highway 1 has traffic along the peninsula. And some of our bus routes are overcrowded. This particular bus is line 23 that runs from Salinas down to King City. And it has times when people are standing on the bus going down the highway because there's lack of service. And that's just a direct result of the limited resources that we have for transit. So all of these are areas that we want to help improve. This is a crash at Castroville Boulevard and Highway 156. It's our #1 accident location or crash location in the county. And on the 101 south of Salinas going down to our South County cities, there's at-grade intersections that have people crossing, including farm equipment that obviously is much more cumbersome and goes slowly. And so there's quite a few incidents along that corridor. Our population is getting older with baby boomers hitting their senior ages, and the need for enhanced service for seniors and transportation above and beyond transit service, above and beyond being required to drive yourself in your own car, is something that we can help address. And then getting kids to school, not having to drive your kids to school, feeling safe that they have a safe way to get there with sidewalks and bike paths and other improvements is something that we want to focus on. The reason why our roads are in bad shape and why we haven't been able to do all this is the funding that we get for transportation is primarily the gas tax. And the gas tax hasn't changed since 1994. And over that time period, when you factor in inflation and improved vehicle mileage, the value of the 18 cents that was approved back in 1994, back when a gallon of gas was $1.11, has actually decreased to about 9 cents. So it's about half the value over the same period of time, where it's a lot more expensive to do projects. Inflation, environmental requirements doing projects are a lot more complicated now than it was back in the 90s. So we have less revenue, we still have our needs. And what we're proposing is become a self-help county, raise our own money in order to meet some of our needs. And the key to this is local sales tax controlled by the voters. We put together what we call an investment plan that lists how the money will be used, and it goes to the voters, all of us, and either gets approved or denied. And that plan lists how the money's going to be used, and the state can't say, well, we think your priorities are over here, instead of where you think your priorities are. So the state can't take the money and they can't direct where the money goes. We can also use the self-help money as a match for grants, and that's a big deal because all of our projects are a quilt of various fund sources, trying to get up to the total dollar amounts. Ariana mentioned the Roundabout, where we have mitigation for a Pebble Beach development paying for about half of it. The other half is partly local money with your Air Pollution Control District contributing. Part of it's state money, part of it's federal money. There's probably, honestly, all told, when you really look at it, probably 15 different fund sources when you look at staff time. And so all projects are like that. It's very complicated and it's hard to get the total dollar amount. But having money locally that you can put up as a match draws in state grants and federal grants and makes your projects more attractive. So that's a big value of having a local sales tax. And what we're talking about is 3/8 of a cent. That's a fraction of a penny over 30 years. And I won't go into how we came up with 3/8 because it's so confusing, but it's really the amount of the gap allowed locally for a sales tax. But just to be clear, it's a little more than 1/8 and less than 1/2 of a cent. And it generates approximately, it's estimated to generate $20 million a year. And over 30 years, that's $60 million. I mentioned we've been talking to folks around the county, and this is a word cloud, if you're familiar with that. It shows various issues and important items that people have brought to us. I mentioned Janet was part of our community advisory group. I know Kayla is over there, who's on the group, but if I missed anyone else, I apologize. But we tried to get a very balanced, diverse representation. And in addition to those folks, we've had our board of directors, which is a representative from each of the cities and the 5 county supervisors. We've gone to all the city councils. We've had other community meetings, meeting with civic groups, and asked them, what do you think is how we should utilize these funds? What are the most important issues? And you can see habitat, fill of potholes, bike safety, congestion relief, stormwater improvements, pedestrian safety, Highway 68. I mean, these issues, all the bigger ones came up more often. The smaller ones we heard from others. And we used all these to put together a plan and combined it with our safety data, looking at the areas that had the highest incidence of crashes. And what we have proposed in this draft is half the money goes to the cities and the county for local street and road maintenance, and the other half goes to regional projects. And our board is going to be considering this later this month on the 24th. And I think when we get to the board, we've been meeting with different counties and different groups, and we're probably going to end up with 60% going to local street and roads and 40% going to the regional projects. That's probably the balance we'll be at. But we'll find out on the 24th, and I'm really waiting in bated breath what they decide. When you look at the local roads needs, at 60%, that would be $360 million. And the focus is on pothole repair and maintenance, road safety, and things like adding sidewalks and bicycle lanes where they're needed, and then things like storm water drainage and maybe other new technology. That could be a roundabout, it could be signal synchronization to allow traffic to go through a corridor faster. But the focus of this is the pothole and maintenance, because $360 million